All right. It's a wintry morning here in Western New York, but the Baker Fairburn Hockey Show is back here on November 11th, 2025. Thanks everyone for tuning in. I'm your host, Kris Baker, here as always with your Sabres beat writer for The Athletic. That's Matthew Fairburn. As always, you can find all of Matthew's work, and I mean all of it, at theathletic.com/sabres. Get over there, get a subscription. Holiday shopping season's coming up. Get a head start on your stocking stuffers for your friends and family. If you're watching this on YouTube, hit the like button on this video. Subscribe to the Sabres Prospects YouTube channel. Hit the notification bell so you know when a new video drops or when Matthew and I go live. You can find the Baker Fairburn Hockey Show on Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. And you could please leave a 5-star review. All right, Matthew Fairburn, let's just jump right in here on this Tuesday morning. Sabres go winless in their last 3, just 1 victory in their last 6 games. So here we are, 15 games into the 2025-26 season. Sabres are 5-6-4. Good for 14 points. That's a .467 points percentage. If we go back to last season while we're here, 15 games in, the Sabres were right at 500 with a 7-7-1 record. Right at 500, like I said. They were knocking on the door of the wild card. So similar story to last season, but it feels a lot different. This year, if you flip the Eastern Conference standings upside down, the Sabres are at the top. But there's another list that you don't need to flip upside down to find the Sabres ranking pretty high. And that's one that you're probably not happy about if you're Kevyn Adams. With the Rasmus Dahlin leave of absence aside, Sabres have officially run out of room at the infirmary. And they got some, it's just been a constant wave of bad news with the health of this team, really all season long. What do you got on the latest on that, Matthew Fairburn?
Yeah, it has been rough, and they are right at or near the top of the man games lost list. And I believe NHL Injury Viz, who calculates that, does not calculate leave of absences. And so it would be even worse if Dahlin's absence were considered here. But on Monday, the latest news was that Yuri Kulik has a blood clot issue and is going to miss a significant amount of time. Lindy Ruff said he expects him to play again this year, but that depends how things go in the next 3 to 4 weeks. And I find this to be particularly concerning. I mean, just upsetting, considering the fact that it was initially described as sort of inner ear discomfort. And so when, you figure out that that's blood clot related, it's a pretty scary, serious situation for Kulik, who's only 21 years old. And on top of that, so he'll be out for a while, at least a month, it seems like. Jason Zucker, who went down with an illness on November 1st, still isn't feeling much better, which is crazy. You hear a guy go out with an illness and you think a few games, maybe, miss a couple games, get back to practice, get up to speed. He was on injured reserve, so we knew it was going to be a week, but now it sounds like this trip is up in the air for him as well, and they can't figure out what's going on there. Zach Benson was 50-50 to make the trip as well. He had a walking boot on as of around this time last week. He had started skating on his own, but hasn't started skating with the team. And those are just the 3 freshest ones. Obviously, Josh Norris is out still for, I would say, another month. Justin Danforth still hasn't started practicing with the team. That's 5 of your top 9 forwards during training camp that are out. And they've also had Michael Kesselring miss a bunch of time. He's back now, but they have Dahlin taking a leave of absence, which is obviously a significant loss to the team here as well. It's kind of hard to properly wrap your head around what's going on here. I mean, there's injury luck, and then there's this. That this is this is bad. This is just a bad situation that I don't know. As you pointed out, they're not in a good place in the standings as it is. And, you know, Dahlin, I think it was basically universal agreement in the comment section on social media, people I talked to, like everybody agrees this is a good idea, a good thing, commends him for doing it, right? I think especially hard for Dahlin, I'm sure, given the situation, given the fact that he is the captain, the highest paid player, the best player, given the fact that the team needs him, the team is not in a great place in the standings and has all these injuries, probably made this decision a little bit harder than even it should have been, right? Because I think we all agree that him prioritizing family and being there for his fiance after what she went through should be priority number one. You have that, and then you have all the news on Monday, and it's just like, that was on Friday that Darlene took that leave. It's just these guys are up against it, and they have a tough stretch coming up, and it's up to the guys in the room essentially to try to keep this season afloat, because it's either that or Kevin Adams has to do something. And I don't know what your options are in early November that can drastically. There's not a button you can push to fix 5 top 9 forwards being out of your lineup for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, it's almost amazing that they're only 1 point behind last year's pace, a season that they did make the playoffs, mind you, okay, but it's almost incredible because it's not just the current guys that you just named. They missed Greenway for a significant chunk to start the year. Kozak was out for a bundle of games. Even the goaltenders. Luukkonen started the year. Ellis missed a start because of the back, and we may see him. We can talk about that. I mean, it's incredible, and the list goes on. I mean, Samuelson missed a couple games. I think Power missed a game.
Power missed at
And
least a game
yeah,
for sure. So
and
everybody's taking a turn.
to your earlier comment, by the way, NHL Injury Viz does not plot Dahlin's leave of absence. So it really it magnifies. Just they had to do it for Rasmus. You have to. He's a human being, and maybe it was predetermined that when they got to this road trip, they'd send him back for a little bit, and the thought is that he comes back and he has that time with his fiance. Maybe it energizes him. It gets him away to just think about things. He did skate with Frölunda yesterday. But it's just, it's easy to kind of pick apart the team after the past decade and a half. But from a human standpoint, you got to feel so bad for these guys. Now,
For the players, I mean, especially like the guys in that room that have nothing to do with the 15 years, the 14 years, whatever. They have something to do with a chunk of it. But the stuff that's going on, I mean, obviously what happened to Darlene and what happened to Darlene's fiance is like unimaginable and something you're never expecting when, you know, you during camp when Darlene, they were saying Darlene's going to come out and share some news. Like you have, that doesn't even cross your mind. And then even Monday, the blood clot thing, it was just like, I think I even said out loud, I don't know if the mic caught it, but I was just like, geez, like as soon as Lindy said it, I was just like, man, like, and then Zucker, like these things that are just, it isn't like one, guy getting injured after another. It's like these freak things that you don't see a lot. And yeah, that I think it's hard to not, it's hard to, you have to wonder what's going through the heads of the guys in the room as all of it's happening. But, they're professional athletes and they're sort of conditioned to just roll with the punches. But it's all of a sudden a very big trip for guys like Tage Thompson, Alex Tuck, Matthias Samuelson, Kesselring, Byram, Power, like these guys that are still that next group of players that need to carry the load here for a bit.
Now, the strength and conditioning coach was a hot topic in the off season because of all the changes that Kevin Adams could have made to this organization. That was kind of the big one. When you look at these injuries and just the illnesses, let's just call them what they are, too. It's like a lot of them are illnesses. You can't really pin it on strength and conditioning. Some of them you can, I think, or at least question certain ones, but like it's such a freak thing. And I just kind of want to point that out too, because it was a topic coming into the season, just given the changeover with that side of the operation.
Yeah,
So
I think if you go through them one by one, it's hard to I have a hard time with that anyway. It's
mhm,
it's this hot topic this
it
week
is. Yeah.
in Orchard Park because the Bills are dealing with all sorts of injuries. They also changed their strength and conditioning staff. Uh, you wonder what Terry Pagula is thinking on both sides of his professional sports operation. Like, I thought I fixed these things, but it goes to show you that there's only so much that you can control in physical games like football and hockey that stuff is going to happen. But to your point, the illness portion of this, Yuri Kulik, that's got nothing to do with strength and conditioning. I mean, Jason Zucker getting sick doesn't have anything to do. I mean, more than likely doesn't have anything to do with strength and conditioning.
Right.
There's no reason to think it would. I've always found it hard in general to pinpoint what exactly is and isn't strength and conditioning. There is a sports science component to managing workload and all these different things, but still, with each injury, putting aside the fact that the NHL is incredibly vague with most injuries, anyways, like Kesselring, we don't know what Kesselring was dealing with, but he said it was something that was nagging him, and he decided he shouldn't push it anymore. Like that one, maybe you could chalk up to if sports and conditioning had stepped in and said, "Hey, you gotta pull back here." Maybe that wouldn't have gotten to that point. But you've got Justin Danforth, I believe, blocked a shot. So
Mhm.
what's he supposed to do
That's
there?
hockey, man. Yeah.
That's just that happens. Benson appears to be dealing with some sort of ankle or foot situation. I don't know if that would be considered strength and conditioning. He's dealt with ankle stuff in the past. Norris, maybe, but also he had we don't know exactly what it is. If we're to assume it's some sort of core muscle thing, he had that in the past. Should he have been? I don't know. Again, is there
Can we
a?
just say he's cursed?
Well, yeah, he's got bad luck. I mean, like that
He has bad
guy,
luck, man.
like he's had a tough go of it. So Kozak, we don't know exactly what it was. Samuelson, they've managed well here. He's only missed a few games. Power was coming off the knee, so I don't know. It's the only potential criticism I would have had at the beginning of the year, and Lindy Ruff kind of shot this down, but there was sort of a pile up of these minor injuries.
Yeah.
And I
It
think
started right away, man.
you could
Yeah.
have made a case like, hey, maybe this whole program is a little too strenuous. Like there is a fine line between pushing guys and, like I mentioned, the sports science component of everything, managing workloads, figuring out when the batteries are running low. I mean, you see it at used to see it when I covered the Bills and same with the Sabres, the various ways that they track how guys are feeling from a heart rate perspective, work, different things to manage workload. Say, hey, maybe it's time to back off this guy. Maybe it's time to back off the group in certain situations. But yeah, if you're looking for somebody to blame for all this stuff, I don't know. I think you got to look at, you know, who cursed something along the way. What did they build the arena on? What kind of ground did they build the arena on? Like something's going on here with this franchise that it's cursed. I think is the right word, not just for Norris's situation, but the whole operation.
Yeah, I think it was what, a giant beer bong that they introduced this year. Maybe it's that. Maybe there's some voodoo with that, or maybe it's the new roof. I don't know. But either way, I think that the discourse with the sports science and the strength and conditioning staff kind of maybe being talked about, a lot of it does feel like grasping at straws, but that whole sports science thing is kind of thrust into everyone's. There's just so much money invested in it in all sports, and it's become part of covering teams and TV broadcasts and things like that. It makes people think. So it's not, it has merit to at least think about, but sometimes it does go a little too far for my liking anyways. But regardless, you're looking at the team now, and your best players need to be your best players, especially now, the ones that are healthy. And you can't you can't clone Thompson, you can't clone Tuck. But what does Kevin do?
I mean, you might want to check with Tom Brady on that. You saw what he's doing
That's
with the dog.
true. Yeah,
I
what was
mean,
it, dog?
that's an option. It might be time to
Maybe
put the
you
sports
can.
science department on that, right?
Who would you clone? There's a comment. Which
Yeah,
current
throw it in the comment section.
which current Sabre would you clone right now to get through this injury
It would have to be a
turbulence?
forward, right? It would have to be.
I'm thinking.
And
Yeah.
it have to be one of the healthy ones, right?
I don't even know who I'd clone. I have no idea. Let's think about that. Let's revisit that. Come back. Cliffhanger. Come back. Follow this podcast and this channel and come back for the cliffhanger answer to that one. But no, I mean, where does Kevin Adams go from here? Honestly, I mean, because you and we talked a little bit offline yesterday, and you're kind of running, your bench strength is depleted in terms of recall potential from Rochester. And, you've already dipped into the choice reserves there. You have Oslin and Rosane on your de facto second line at this point because of, how just a hurricane has come through your top six. I think that you're always looking at the trade market, but it's not that simple when you're Kevin
It's really
Adams
not.
gauging the market right now, right?
It's really not. And I know there's going to be a lot of people out there that I've already seen a lot of them commenting about, the injuries shouldn't buy Kevin Adams extra time on the job necessarily, right? Like it shouldn't be the excuse for this season that gets him additional years. And I agree with that. Like I want to preface this conversation by saying I'm not excusing anything for Kevin Adams because the first 5 years on the job are the first 5 years on the job. You would get more benefit of the doubt, more leeway for a season like this one if the first 5 years had gone better. But the current situation, when you drill it down and isolate what are his options, you and I do this pretty regularly of spin around the league, at times
Yep.
like this or in the off season or in the second half of last season when we knew it was time to start shaking things up. You spin around the league, you're looking for teams that are obviously selling, especially in November. You're looking for teams that are going to be trying to sell off parts. There's not a lot of them right now. I mean, the Eastern Conference, everybody's in the race. You take the teams that might be selling and you look at the rosters and you almost have to eliminate players that have any sort of trade protection. You have to assume that 90% of guys are either going to have Buffalo on that list or they're not going to be able to be convinced otherwise. Maybe there's the odd guy here and there that doesn't have them or could be convinced, a guy that's from Ontario or something like that. But adding to the problem is the fact that the Sabres are at the bottom of the standings and it looks pretty bleak as far as injuries go and just the whole situation. A lot of uncertainty surrounding this franchise right now when you have your coach and your general manager in the final year of their contract. So somebody like Nazem Kadri, somebody like Jordan Kyrou, those are big names that are potentially out there. Kadri sounds like they're really not eager to trade him from an ownership level. Kyrou has a list as well. And I think if you're looking in that situation, even you might be able to convince yourself that Kyrou, a Toronto native, a guy that probably needs a change of scenery, potentially, right? If you're trying to talk yourself into this, he just was healthy scratch.
Yeah.
Maybe he would welcome a change of scenery. But why would you commit all those years to a franchise that you don't know what's happening at GM and at coach in a franchise that hasn't won for so long? So there's that component of things. And then there's just the simple fact of what trade can you make that's going to fix 5 guys being out in your top 9.
Yeah, there's no
You
silver
know,
bullet.
there's not a lot of centers available, and center is the biggest problem right now with Norris and Kulik out for, probably the next month at least. That's your biggest problem. Center is one of the scarcest positions on the trade market right now. You could get a body, you could get somebody, but could you get a guy that can fill in the top 6? I think that might be a little bit of a stretch. All of that said, I am of the belief that it would be good for the room for Kevin Adams to do something, to take a swing, to not just sit back and throw his hands up and say, man, look at what's happened to us. There's nothing we can do. Like there is,
regardless of position.
regardless of position, regardless of the quality. Like I think about the Eric Robinson trade, small as it was a couple years ago. It shows that, hey, look, this is a guy that was available. It didn't cost much. Let's go bring in some competition, try to shake things up. And Eric Robinson actually turned into a pretty good player, not here, but has turned into a pretty useful NHL player. You find the right hungry guy willing to come in and try to help fix things, tide things over until guys get healthy. I think that's worthwhile to the overall morale of the group when they see guys going down. But of course, the bulk of what is going to need to help you here is internal, is Oslin, Roseanne. And it's part of why I'm not of the belief, there's people that have reached out to me and they're like, this is showing the lack of depth in the organization. And it's like, well, not really, because I think if you took 5 top 9 forwards away from any team, the lines that get tweeted out at practice would look pretty ugly. But what I will say is this is around the time that you would like Osland and Roseanne to be able to help you in this type of situation, to jump
Yeah.
in and fill in. They are not 18 and 19 years old. These are Kevin Adams draft picks from early on in his tenure that should be now becoming something. I'm not saying they should be ready to shoulder the load or frankly even be in the exact situation that they're in de facto top 6 roles. But for a month, this is where you want those guys to be able to fill in, where you want a Kozak to be able to step up the way he has. Even Josh Dunn, having some of that organizational depth, I would actually say that they've gotten a little bit of that. So I look at it and think Kevin Adams is in a really difficult position. I think it's okay to acknowledge that without excusing his entire tenure. You can sit here and say this is not an easy spot for him to be in. And I also think there's got to be something you can do. There's got to be a body you can bring in. And we see it all the time that random guys, like a change of scenery, the talent level is so good in the NHL that a change of scenery or the right opportunity can be a spark for a guy, even if it's for half a season or the rest of the season. Just somebody motivated, somebody different. And it shows all these guys in the room like, okay, our GM is fighting for us. He's fighting with us here. He's trying to bring in somebody. And I don't think anybody in the room would argue that somebody is needed, right?
Gets a little tricky with the cap.
Well,
because
with
of
the cap,
because
it's
of all
really
the
hard.
guys that
You
they've had
can't
to.
do the Eric Robinson trade, borderline.
Yeah,
Like the conditional pick for uh, an Eric Robinson player. They're right up against it.
because I was like when you were saying, make a move, any move. I was sitting there saying, okay, what are the obvious ones sitting out there? It's like, would you like? It's got to be somewhere between like David Kemp, who's like basically just not. He's just waiting at home. Didn't report to the Marlies. Has NHL experience. Plays center, but like that's not the type of move. I mean, that's something, but it's
Well,
got to be somewhere between that and like totally radical.
he's
Like
got
when
$3
we,
million cap hit, right? So
yeah, it's
you have to do a
no,
little
he has.
gymnastics there to fit him in.
You do. It's 2.4,
Oh, okay, so
2.4, and
it's
he's got a
probably
year
doable.
left after this year. it's doable in the big picture, but you still have to massage the cap, I believe, with all the accumulation. I mean, the Sabres are top 10 right now. Cap hit,
Yeah,
right?
just to explain for people that maybe don't understand or haven't, paid close attention to it, and they're thinking, "What are these guys talking about? The Sabres spending to the cap?" Well, they were under the cap by however much at the beginning of the season, but because they're carrying all these injured players and they're calling guys up, that adds to your sort of cumulative cap hit, at
Mm-hmm.
least for the time being, until everybody gets healthy and you can push guys back down to the AHL. So they are sitting at a grand total of $712,000 in cap space, according to Puckpedia. And, so it's got to be money in, money out a little bit, which it would be if you sent a guy down to the AHL and, made some space that way. But point being, like I said, the Eric Robinson, or even, the movie you're talking about, like 2.4 million is you got to move some stuff around to make that work.
Man, the league minimum salary is $775,000.
Right. So they, you know, between, I mean, all these, they would have to use, could they use long term injured reserve? I guess theoretically, but that would require some willingness to spend over the cap for a
I
short
mean,
period of time, which is a
yeah, it's
sticking
like if they
point.
were going to do that, it's almost like, Norris would have been the one, right? That you
Norris,
would
they
have done it
should have
with.
done it
They should have done it.
and then tried to make a move then, but they also weren't anticipating that they would have all
Like
these other cap hits.
the
They
rest
have
of their team.
right. What are they looking at right now? Somewhere approaching $30 million of salary that is not playing right now.
Yeah,
I
it's a pretty
mean,
big number, because the NHL injury Viz also does the cap hit, and I think it was there. I mean, it's significant when you look at the teams. It's like Vegas and Florida are right up there. Buffalo's right after them in terms of um,
cumulative cap hit.
cumulative cap hit, and then you throw
Then there's
Dahlin into it,
average
and then
WAR. Well,
forget it.
yeah, throw Dahlin and they're right there. At obviously Florida's is two big guys, right?
Right?
And
Yeah,
certainly,
Chuck Barkov.
you know, that's a big deal, but it's crazy to think that from a cap space perspective, we got to brush up on all these rules, these little loopholes of send a guy down for a day to get some cap space, all the little things that these teams that spend to the cap do. Not something I've
Toronto's been
had to
Toronto's
cover.
been doing it all year.
Toronto does it. Yeah, they do it every year. I feel
Easton
like
Pound goes up and down. Like I
they're
think they
looking
put the
for
Marlies there in Toronto just so they can
yeah,
do
probably. I
that
mean,
shit.
they look to spend every
Kidding.
single dollar that they can, and the Sabres are out of necessity perhaps going to be backed into that type of corner. But I do think there's always something to be done, a waiver claim to be made, a trade to be made. Do you make a dramatic move at this stage in the season? That's where I start to get a little bit uneasy because is this the time to be making dramatic moves was probably in the summertime. And do you want it becomes an interesting conversation. Do
Yes, I
you
was gonna
want
ask you the question that you're gonna pose right now, I believe.
do you want Kevin Adams in this desperate lame duck situation, right? Where he's in the final year of his contract and he I mean, his back's up against the wall here. His team is guys are dropping like flies. It would be a desperate move to shake things up with you name the player, right? Power, Byram, like somebody big. Like if you want to make a deal, sometimes you got to really dangle a good
Well,
player.
that's where I'm going in my head. Like, if you
Right.
wanna move the needle,
You got a
but it's
deal from one of
pretty
your
hard to do it right now. Yeah.
hard to do it right now because what are you going to trade? You can't trade Alex Tuck at this current moment. You're going to take another forward out of your out of your top 9.
Oh, what are you getting back?
I guess it depends what you get back, but teams looking to acquire that player are looking, I don't know, I guess if you did like a sign and trade, right? Somebody that was ready to extend him or whatever. But remove Tuck from the equation and assume you want to deal from a position of strength relatively on defense. Maybe throw in some draft picks or some prospects or whatever. You're looking at Power or Byram, it feels like, is where the surplus is on your team right now. I guess Tuck would be the other piece because he's an expiring contract. Do you want Kevin Adams making that trade? Do you want him making it when other GMs know how desperate he is? That's question number one. Question number two would be, does it matter that he's in the final year of his contract when his potential replacement is riding shotgun
Well, that's my whole point.
and has a
Like,
hand
why?
on the wheel? He's
I mean,
already here. The different, I guess it would make people feel better if Kevin Adams were fired and Jarmo Kekalainen stepped in and started making all these moves. My point would be Jarmo Kekalainen might already be making some of these moves anyways, or he would at least have a pretty significant influence. And I say that because he's here every day. He's here all the time. And it is not the body language, anyways, between Kevin Adams and Jarmo Kekalainen suggests to me that Kevin Adams has, like, this is not an uncomfortable situation. This is not like, oh man, this guy that's replacing me is like looking over my shoulder. This is very much a collaborative situation where I think Kevin Adams values Jarmo Kekalainen's input a lot, to the point where I don't think a move is being made without Jarmo Kekalainen. If he were adamantly opposing a move, I have a feeling it would not get made. So if your worry is Kevin Adams shouldn't make a trade because he should be fired or he should be fired in 6 months or whatever, Yarmo should make it instead. He's already here. He's riding shotgun. Different situation than last year when we had this conversation and said, this is a dangerous situation to have Kevin Adams handling the deadline and handling the rest of the season when maybe he shouldn't be in the job. So now, if you want to debate the merit of Jarmo Kekalainen making that move, and you would prefer a full general manager search and interview process and everything like that, that's one thing. But I think most Sabres fans have resigned themselves to the fact that that probably is not happening, and certainly not happening in November. So Kekalainen is kind of the option, and he's here. You know, Kevin Adams has surrounded himself with different people this time, and not that it should make you feel 100 times better, but I think it should alleviate the idea that Adams is out here desperately flailing away in the final year of his contract when he has, I think, the guy that could potentially replace him sitting next to him.
The whole should Kevin Adams be the guy making the deal things, this is not a conversation for me. That's why they brought in Yarmo. It's why they brought in Eric Stahl. It's why they have a team around him. Even last year, it wasn't really a conversation. You have a GM. His job is to address the team. I know he doesn't sometimes at the at the right times or when he needs to, but that conversation never makes sense for me. And I don't think it's relevant this year with the staff that they brought in.
Why is he here? It's a great point by you. Like, he is the general manager.
He's a general manager.
Like, I understand the reluctance people have or the fact that people don't like that fact, but why is he here at all if he's not allowed to do anything? Like, what is the point? And
I'm not asking people to have faith in him. I'm not asking people to have faith at all. I'm just saying, like, he's the guy and he assembled this group around him. Yeah.
But if you're not going to let your GM make a move in November when half the roster's out injured, why do you have a GM? And to the point, I mean, he's got a guy riding shotgun now that has done this before, and I think everybody would be more confident in. But he's already here, and he's already having a pretty significant influence on that. Like, by comparison, Eric Stahl, I have not seen.
Yeah.
So it doesn't mean he has not been around at all, but he's not side by side. I mean, Jarmo Kekalainen is at almost every single practice. He's on the road at games. He's at games. Like, the only time he's not there is if he's out on some sort of scouting assignment. But he is I know there was a lot of talk about him living in Columbus and all that. He's here a lot.
Yeah.
I'm sure he kept his home in Columbus, but, he's got some sort of arrangement here, whether it's at the hotel or otherwise. Like, he was at practice yesterday. He's at practice constantly, sitting right next to Kevin Adams. So I think it's an important distinction to make where people maybe, that aren't keeping as close an eye think he's in Columbus just on his computer, but he's not. He's right there, and I think has a big say in what Kevin Adams is doing.
I think I bring up Stahl because I think just given his recency being in the league and playing, he's going to be, I think, a big part of any deal if they make one. I think his opinion is going to matter. It'll be considered, I think, heavily. Not only that, his brother still plays in the league. His other brother, I think, not playing anymore. I think Mark's done, right? But like he was playing recently. Like there's so much information in that family and through Eric and the discussions. I think it's going to matter. And that's why I kind of bring him up. Like I don't want to forget about him. He could be on special assignment for all we know, going
He could be
around
hanging out remotely, but, like,
like in
you get him
rinks
on the
though.
phone. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, for
You know
sure.
what
I
I
think
mean? Like
Kevin Adams was on
scouting.
NHL Network last week
Yeah.
talking about how he's doing a little bit of everything, and he wants him to get kind of his hands on every different department of hockey ops to, get a
This
feel
is a
for
secession plan. This is Kevin's secession plan.
potentially.
Succession plan. You know what I mean?
I mean, I think it very well could be. It's gonna be an interesting rest of the season in
Yeah.
regards to all that because this is very clearly, to me, a time of a potential transition point for this
Yeah.
franchise again, and I understand some are probably feeling a bit hopeless about that, like another transition point, but I don't think it's full on teardown either. So the transition point is a natural one because you have a coach and a GM who don't have contracts for next year. So Terry Pagula does not need to pay people not to work. He does not need to fire Kevin Adams, theoretically, right? Contract's up. I think it could create a smoother transition if it comes to that. But it also creates a friction point if you want him to stay in the job because you need to give him another contract and you need to announce that and you need to, that giving guy, you're not going to give him a 1 year deal. So giving him year 7 and 8 when the first 6 are no playoffs, like it's almost untenable from a business standpoint, knowing the state of the fan base. So the transition, the only question is, what would a potential transition look like? And to your point, I think Kevin Adams, people won't like hearing it, but it seems like Kevin Adams is going to have some sort of
I don't see a
hand in that,
world. Yeah. Oh, I don't
right?
see a world where he's not part of the organization. Results aside, in his term as general manager, factoring in the relationship and the trust with ownership, and he'll always be that bridge to whoever is managing the team on a day-to-day basis. That's just how I see it.
It
I
could
don't
be.
see
It could get
I
to
don't
a
see a
point where
world where
he's
he's
not,
not in the organization.
or it could get to a point where maybe he's back on the business side, or maybe he's some sort of liaison between the two. Like it feels like Terry Pagula would find a spot for him. I don't know that for sure, but it feels like that would be the case. And, you know, does that mean he's falling upwards and getting a promotion? Maybe it might, but it also might mean he doesn't have his hand on day-to-day hockey decisions, which I think is ultimately what a lot of the fan base would prefer. It would mean Jarmo Kekalainen or whoever is chosen is the one standing up there talking about moves and, you know, trying to inspire confidence in this fan base. But I think one thing to consider from Pagula's standpoint is not just the trust and the relationship he's built up over, a decade and a half with this guy, but the position he put him in too. And was, and it's not necessarily to absolve Adams either, but the way in which he got the job and firing all those people, operating on a shoestring budget for all those years, like that was not an easy position to throw any general manager
Yeah.
into. And Kevin Adams, jumped into the fire. So, it is what it is. But it's not totally off of his hands either. But when you have that shared experience, it makes me wonder if he would ever really cut him out of the organization completely, to your
I just
previous
don't
point.
think.
Like, they've
Yeah,
been through a
yeah.
lot together, and the trust and all that is there. That would be the key point, is if the trust were ever somehow broken. But that doesn't strike me as something that Kevin Adams, he's made a lot of mistakes in his tenure. I don't think that's a mistake he's going to make with Terry Pegula. So it could happen. It could always happen, and Pegula could get emotional and change his mind. That happens, but it doesn't seem like he's going to go anywhere.
It's a hard pill for fans, I think, to digest sometimes, but in a certain part of the big discussion, Kevin probably did his job in the eyes of Terry. Didn't make the playoffs, didn't get the playoff revenue, but kind of managed managed it
He
the way it needed
right-sized
to.
the
He
business.
right-sized the business. Yeah, I mean, that's a bitter pill for the fans as well. But now here we are. So because we don't know for sure, right, what Kevin's going to do or what he's going to want to do, but we know that there's 10 games left in the month of November. Thanksgiving is on the 27th of November. We know that that's the point in the season that we talk about every year. It's a fair indicator of what the playoffs are going to look like in terms of, the 8 teams from each conference that make the playoffs. Should we start running the timer on Kevin? And maybe does that transition happen quicker? Like, given the injury, everything that we talked about today, it's been like so damn hard for this team to succeed. They're 1 point off last year's pace. In these 10 games, we talked about a 10-game mini season around this time last year. I think we said they needed to have, I forget what the number was. I mean, they need to get at least how many points to stay, given the parity in the conference, everything else. Like, look, in the standings, by the way, let's properly set it up, right? In the standings, someone yelled at me saying I made sure I didn't close the window today, Matt. Sabres have 14 points. Final wild card spot right now is 18 points. 15 games played. That's with the Lightning and the Flyers. Sabres have 15 games played. They're 4 points back. 4 points.
4
Back.
points with a lot of teams to jump, right? So
Yes. A lot
math
of
is
teams to
not
jump.
fun. I mean, they're in last place. The crowdedness of the Eastern Conference makes it wide open. It also makes it hard to lose ground. You don't want to be the first team that loses ground, and they're losing ground right now. They
They got a
are.
game in hand on 5 of the teams that they have to leapfrog.
This trip is everything
It is,
already.
man. This month, I think the
The
balance of
month,
this month for
but
sure.
yeah, I mean,
But these 3 games,
you
right?
go 0-3,
Utah,
the rest of the month
Colorado,
almost doesn't
Detroit.
matter unless you
Yeah.
rip off 7 wins in a row. So they have Utah, they have Colorado, Detroit, all on the road. They come home, they have Edmonton, Calgary, Chicago, Carolina every other day. They're every other day. Starting on Wednesday and Thursday, they play back-to-back Utah, Colorado. Then they're every other day through that stretch. They play Pittsburgh on the road the night before Thanksgiving. They play New Jersey at home on Black Friday. And then they have the second half of a back-to-back. They play the next night in Minnesota. So that's a tough stretch for any team. It's especially tough when you're going to be missing a bunch of guys. We don't know if Dahlin will miss that entire stretch, but he's going to miss the road trip anyways. So I would think probably a little bit longer than that, but I don't know for sure, and they haven't said. He'll come back in shape. He's skating over there, and I think he'll be ready to jump right back in when he does come back, but might miss him for, what, half of that 10-game stretch at least, are we thinking? So
Yeah.
even if you
I mean,
don't, the rest of the guys that are injured probably aren't coming back. Zucker, you would think, should be able to come back pretty soon, but I'm not confident in saying that, considering I thought he'd be back by now. And whatever he's dealing with, I mean, anytime you're sick for 10 days, it's a little concerning.
and he's probably lost a ton of weight.
Well, like, getting back into shape is going to be not fun for him. Benson should be close to returning. Kulik is not. Norris is not. Danforth should be getting a little bit closer, but I don't think he's quite ready. And if you come out of that 10-game stretch with anything less than 10 points, you might be toast. I mean, we always use the Thanksgiving mark as if you're not in a playoff spot, you're fighting an uphill battle. As of last Wednesday, Dom's model had the Sabres with a 36% chance to make the playoffs. They have since lost 2 games in regulation. I don't know how much he's factoring in the injury situation. It's probably a hard thing to totally calculate, not knowing how long some of these guys are out. But since last Wednesday, they lost to the Blues. Dahlin took a leave of absence and they lost to the Hurricanes. And then on Monday, they found out this news about Kulik and Zucker. It's gotten worse than 36% for sure. And it could be pretty bleak by the end of this trip. In my mind, if they don't get at least 3 points out of the 3 games on the trip, they're already in pretty dire situation.
It's been a bizarro year. I'm just, the Sabres are going to need George Babcock to play soon. Anaheim's won 7 in a row. The Blackhawks are in playoff position. What the hell's going on?
It's the changing of the guard in the NHL, and the Sabres are providing the one constant for everybody. It's like, wow, this has been a bizarre year, but it's comforting for the rest of the league to see the Sabres are still the Sabres. But it has been a mess for this team. Like I said, it is really difficult to properly judge the team and what has been done. Putting Kevin Adams aside, I mean, there's plenty of a body of work there to judge, but this team in particular, this was a pretty pivotal year for them, and it's hard to judge. It really is. I mean, any team that had this many injuries, it would be really difficult to judge, and in any other situation, I think it'd be easy to give a lot of people a pass for what's happening, and it's hard, that they have the cumulative baggage of a playoff drought weighing on their shoulders on top of this.
Assuming we're right, or maybe at least me, I think you're thinking this way. Assuming that this is correct, that Kevin is maybe already knows where he's going to be when he's not managing the team on the day-to-day. Assuming that happens, say shit just goes completely sideways, which would actually be the norm. It's not even really sideways anymore in these 10 games that are left in the month of November. They fall radically out. Would you see him handing the keys to Jarmo and moving on to his next assignment in this organization? To just get out of the way and I hate to, again, it's, you know what I mean? Because it's then such a weird season. Like, I think that he's committed to it. I'm not pushing for that or predicting it. I'm just asking the question.
I don't know. It
would just be more chaos.
It's a really interesting question, and I think it's something to watch and something to monitor because, like we said, then it's a transition period. The next step for this front office becomes the story of as soon as they fall out of it, that becomes the story. The next step for this front office is the number one story with the team. So bringing it up, I don't think is out of bounds at all. Would he? It's hard. I notice a slight difference. I think it's hard because Kevin Adams doesn't speak to us as often as he used to, like a few years ago. But I do feel like I notice a little bit of a difference with him with Jarmo around. That maybe he's not as clenched, right? Like last year, that like you could feel the pressure on him every time you saw him, and now it feels like I don't know. Again, I'm reading body language here, but I do think he'd be more open to that than he would have last year because now there are guys around him. There's somebody right there that could do it. The reason I think it's worth watching is because at some point they're going to have to make that decision. And this sport I feel like is different than although we see it happen in the NFL too, but it's something I realized a couple years ago when we were talking through this with Kevin Adams is like Well, yeah, you don't really want to give him the year because the trade deadline is one of the big times where you can alter the course of your franchise. And so making that plan and carrying it out mid-season isn't far-fetched. And I think the big thing overhanging all of that is the business reality of it. The fact that you're going to be looking at a situation where fans feel pretty hopeless with all the injuries, and if they do, slide out of it, the team, the fan base is going to be wondering what's next, and they're going to be wondering about the direction of the franchise, and it's going to be pretty bleak. And a pretty easy PR win and business win and fan relations win would be to show them the plan and give them that plan in the way of a change. And fans it might even help Kevin Adams' image a little bit if he were to, however they make it look, if he were to pave the way for that in some way. So that's what's riding on the next 10 games. I feel like those questions are riding on this next stretch and whether these players can stay in the fight. And then we'll get to all the other questions that follow of what do you do with this roster? But we have so much time to get into that.
Yeah.
Let's see if these guys can pull themselves out of it before we're, building the trade board and figuring out who stays and who goes, because these guys do still have a chance to hang in it. And if they can hang in it until Norris gets back and Dahlin is back, that's enough. Norris and Dahlin is enough to lift this lineup, especially if they can bolster it with some trades. So let's see what they can do.
Yeah, they have to dig out. Like, we can't be sitting here and just like talking about the injuries all season. If they go to it has to change regardless. You can't just lean on that crutch. You got to acknowledge the injuries, but they have to win games. They have to make a playoff push. It has to be in these 10 games. I think that we already have, like, where my mind goes in this conversation, when we start talking about Kevin, like, I think the answer for who's the next general manager of this team, I think we already have clues. I'm not sure we have any clues on who the next head coach is for this team.
No,
Just because of Lindy's age and his contract situation.
There's a
And
lot up in the air.
you know what I mean?
It feels
There's
like.
and that's another conversation for another day. Like, I don't even want to get us going on that because I'll miss lunch. Okay. And it just turned 7:00 in the morning here in Western New York. Let's just stop there because I think that was an exhausting conversation for me this early in the day. To be honest with you, this team, man, like the injury, it's just it's one season after another. It's just something. Last year was a 13-game losing streak. This year it's 70 plus man games lost, I think is what the number is right now. And your captain taking a leave of absence is just something. Can these guys dig out? We didn't even talk about how good that McLeod, Tuck, Thompson, those guys are going to have to play like 25 minutes a night if they don't do something.
Yeah, they're going to need them. Like, Oslin and Roseanne have played well. They're going to need that. Kozak stepping up. Like, this would, I mean, if the flip side
They're a
of all
great
this,
story, man.
well, I was going to say the flip side of all this, and Kevin Adams probably already turned off this show, and so he won't hear this. But the flip side of all this is if they do pull out of it, it's a feather in the cap of the depth that they've built. It's a big if, right? But Kozak, Oslin, Roseanne, if those are the guys that can help lift the boat a little bit and you stay afloat until Norris gets back and Dahlin gets back, it would be a feather in the cap for Lindy Ruff, for Adams, for the depth they've built, for keeping things together. Maybe that would be a sign that the culture is starting to change, but which way is it going to go? I think a lot of people have a feeling which way it's going to go, but to your point, what a story it would be if they stay in the fight. So let's see how this trip goes, and let's see how that stretch running up to Thanksgiving goes. It's a weird league.
Yeah, these young guys, no one wants to hear about the experience that they're getting. That is a benefit, but they have to win games now. No one wants to hear that. I get it. Looking beyond, it is some pretty good experience for Roseanne and for Oslin. more for Kozak, who's here, and he's here. He's arrived.
Yeah, he's a
Kozak's never going back to Rochester.
no, he's got
Never
a
going
place.
back.
He's good.
Yep, I agree. We didn't even talk about the story that came out over the weekend. Should we save it for Thursday?
Let's save it for Thursday. We got time to fill, shows to fill, but we'll talk about Alex Tuck signing bonuses, the whole deal. We'll get into that. We got shows to fill. We'll be talking about the Utah game, I'm sure, on Thursday morning, which I believe is our next planned. Look at us giving people a heads up of when we're going to go. But yeah, we'll talk about that. We got time. Like I said, we have time to get into all those roster related decisions and different things, but the injuries and this 10-game stretch are kind of the story of the day.
Yeah, I agree. Matthew Fairburn kind of already did his plugs there, but I'll complete the task for him. You can find all of Matthew's work at theathletic.com/Sabres. Go and get the subscription. Sign up for The Athletic through one of Matthew's stories. For the production crew, who better be out shoveling my steps so I don't fall on my ass when I go out to walk my dogs. I'm Kris Baker. Thanks, everyone, for making this show part of your routine. We will see you again next time.